as the psalmist wrote this, they knew they were writing it in the middle of a sin-broken world where things happen.
Yeah.
I think that we need to understand that this psalm is not a promise that we will never experience hurt or heartache, because we will.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, other places all over the scripture tell us that we will. James says, when you experience various trials, Jesus says, the world hated me, they'll hate you. He said, in this world, you will have trouble. Like, we are going to face those things. What Jesus gives us is something that life can't steal and death doesn't take away.
Yeah.
You know?
Welcome to Let's Talk About That, the podcast where we deep dive into Sunday's message and explore your questions. I'm your host, Astin Kahnk, and I'm excited to share this journey with you. Whether you're a longtime member of The Orchard or a first-time visitor, Let's Talk About That is your space to explore, reflect, and connect. Join us as we navigate the intricacies of faith, spirituality, and daily life, seeking to understand how the wisdom shared on Sundays can be applied to our modern challenges. So, grab a cup of coffee, find a comfortable space, and let's dive in together. This is Let's Talk About That, where the conversation about Sunday's message never stops. Welcome back, 2026, to Let's Talk About That. Crazy.
We haven't done a podcast since last year.
Great dad joke.
I know. I did that on Sunday and I felt good. I ain't gonna lie. I don't care. I don't care that I had more groans than laughs. It felt good.
Good. And I really liked that you made that reference of the white shoes.
Oh, it was so funny because first thing that Haley says to me on Sunday morning, she goes, wow, those are white shoes. I was like, yeah, it's because it's Christmas and I got my new shoes this year. So they're not going to be white forever, but now they're white. Yeah. They're my new shoes.
They're fresh year, fresh shoes. We'll see how they are in July.
Yeah, I'm not, so I'm not the boomer or ex-dad that has the New Balance shoes. I'm the millennial dad that has the On Cloud white shoes.
Oh, they were On Clouds.
Yeah.
Okay, they looked a little New Balancey to me, but
quite
sure.
I don't hate the New Balance look, to be fair. I actually have a pair of classic Reeboks that are also white that I wear a lot.
Oh.
But no, actually, it was last Christmas that I got my first set of On Clouds.
Okay.
I think it was last Christmas, maybe the Christmas before. But anyway, I open up, I was like, oh, new shoes, thanks. And she's like, those are On Clouds. And I was like, okay, what's an On Cloud? She's like, well, let's just say it was one of your big gifts. I was like, oh, okay. I didn't know this was a thing. I thought you just like off-brand tennis shoes. I didn't know it. Never heard of On Cloud in my life. But this year when I saw the box, I was like, oh, they're clouds.
So so I've never owned On Cloud. I've done Hoka's, which, Yeah. So what is like?
Well, essentially On Clouds are because I'm getting old and my feet hurt sometimes, I think. So
Gotcha.
They're like I'm pretty confident they're made for aging millennials because they still are kind of like trendy.
Okay.
But like they're super comfortable.
Okay.
Like you get this, you feel like you're walking.
Good arch support.
Clouds.
Good arch support.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't have bad arches, so I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I have flat feet, very, very flat feet.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
I couldn't tell you. I got very thin, very flat feet. So.
Okay. Good to know.
Yeah.
A little fun.
Wow. This podcast is off to a roaring start this morning.
Fantastic. So yeah, new year, man. What a great, just season to think about what's ahead, changes we can make. Got any goals this year, Chip?
Well, so contrary to our Live Oak worship leader, Lucas, I am not a big New Year's resolution.
Really? Okay.
I'm not a big. Eddie's actually the guy who years ago turned me on to a word for the year kind of thing. And so I've kind of done that. I haven't really settled in to what I'm looking at for this year. If I had to just go with one right now, I'd probably say 26 challenge year.
Okay.
I feel like the year is going to be a challenge. One of the things I sent out a text to the staff every Sunday morning. Mm-hmm. Actually, I don't know if you saw it because you were probably up by then, but I sent it out early yesterday on accident and then unsent it because I usually do the send later and schedule it for 7 a.m.
You can schedule text messages?
Okay, Boomer. Yes, you can schedule text messages.
I had no idea.
It's phenomenal. It's the best update that Apple has had to text in, since reactions. But I schedule it for 7 because I'm like, hey, if you're on staff and you're not up and going at 7, you probably should be, right? Yeah. Matter of fact, the running joke was that I started the staff text as a way to make sure that Matt and AJ and Lucas were up on Sunday mornings.
Gotcha.
But no, I sent it out at 7. I sent it out too early because I forgot to do the send later. And I was like, oh, shoot. So I unsent it. Probably 6:15 or something like that. And I was like, wait, I'll wait. Anyway, so I sent this one this Sunday and I was like, hey, give me fill in the blank, 2026 feels like, was one of the questions. And for me, that's the word. I think 2026 feels like challenge, and not in a bad way, in a lot of ways, a good way. So I think that would be like the word I have for the year right now. But with it, it's not a resolution. I would say it is a goal for 2026. And when I saw you put this in the notes, question, I was like, do I want to say it on the podcast? Because then if I say it on the podcast, I'm kind of committing to it because people are going to be like, hey, how's that going? So I've shared it with one person so far. I've shared it with Trey that this was my goal for something I want to do this year. I want to write the New Testament by hand.
Wow. Okay. So
some context, not because I see this as something to have as a family keepsake, because my handwriting is terrible, right? So it's like, I'm not sure I'll be able to read by the time I get done.
Gotcha.
And actually, I've actually done something like this before, because when I was in school, we had to translate a lot of the Greek New Testament. So we'd have to handwrite out, passages of the New Testament a lot. And actually, one of the things we had to do was translate Philippians. So I had like a spiral notebook with my translation of Philippians in it when I was in school.
Very cool.
And it's good, because it helps you think about things, helps you remember things. I'm very much like a, spatial learner. Like when I listen and then write stuff down, I can tell you where this is on that page kind of thing. Yeah. So I think that helps me kind of internalize scripture a little bit. And then plus I think it's a cool challenge.
Yeah.
So maybe the first nerd out section on the podcast, not in a good way, but just in, hey, he's a nerd. What's holding me up from actually getting started right now is I haven't picked a notebook and a pen.
I was literally about to say, I don't know how many podcasts ago. When we did our private study, you were saying you like a really good notebook and a really good pen. I was about to say, I wonder if that's,
It's holding me up right now because I'm not going to go with the A5 notebook, which the A5 notebook is the 5 by 5.3 inches and 8.5 inches. I think I'm going to go the full size notebook, the V5.
Okay.
And it'd be a lot bigger pages, kind of like notebook paper size pages. So I've kind of settled in on that, but I still need to settle in on a good pen.
Is it spiral bound or is it I
don't think I'm going to do spiral bound. I think I'm actually going to do a hard bound notebook.
Yeah, that way you can keep it.
Yeah. Just in case.
I'm this is a total weird rabbit hole. I like those really cheap BIC stick pens.
They're actually great pens
because they last forever.
They're great pens.
Yes.
I'm torn right now between a couple of pens. Again, total nerd section. Welcome to the podcast. I love the new Sharpie pens that are out, like the Sharpie rollerball gel pens.
Yeah, those are nice.
Those are good. Massive fan of the Uniball Jetstream pens. Those are phenomenal. They're different sizes, different inks, whatever. One of my favorite ones I use in my notebooks is a 3-color Jetstream pen.
Oh, fancy.
Or I might use one of the, fine liner, the very small felt tip, almost like miniature Sharpie kind of pen. I use those a lot. And I think I'm leaning toward that because people say, it holds up well. They're easy to write with. So, it's funny, the year of challenge, and here I am hung up on, I don't know what notebook and pen to write with. So I'm going to be getting started soon, and then we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, that's exciting. No, yeah, whenever, Lucas was talking about that, I was, I kind of shared this with Chip yesterday. I just, Saturday night, I kind of had a hard time sleeping, had this excitement for almost this anticipation, almost like Christmas morning of just going into church yesterday. And so I think my word would just be expectant. I'm just expectant to see what God has, not only for me personally, but just for our church, because I even heard from Michael that he could feel it in the Brantford location, just this buzz of just excitement for people being at church. We launched our 8:30, not 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
8:30 service yesterday. And it was just people were there at 8:05 coming in droves. And it was just so cool just to see. You could just feel the energy off of them. It was a, new year, new service, but they were just excited to be at church. So I'm excited to kind of see, and expectant to see what God's going to do, not only in us, but also in our church.
Well, I think there is that little bit of excitement when we come back from taking that week off.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of cool. I woke up early, Sunday. Let me clarify. I woke up early on Sunday because we have an 8:30 service now. But I woke up earlier than my alarm was set for, and it really was. It was kind of I'm excited. Let's get going. So I think that's really good. I'm excited and expectant as well to see what this year is going to hold, because I think it's It's a big year for the Orchard. I felt like for a long time as a church, maybe we were in like a transition period, not in a bad way, just kind of like we were moving out of one season into another one. But I think we're kind of firmly in that season of, hey, you know, we've grown up. We're a young adult church now in the fact that we are going on our 19th year.
Yeah.
And all right, it's time for us to start doing big boy things, you know, big girl things. Let's start, you know, making stuff happen. And I feel like we're positioned and ready to do it and people are excited about it. So let's do it. Let's make that impact. Let's impact lostness. Let's impact tomorrow. We're ready. Let's do it. And that's exciting. That's exciting.
It is exciting. So so let's just jump right in. So new year, new sermon series, which is, so why did you guys choose to start the year with this new sermon series, Songs of Ascent?
Well, so you remember last year in the Vision series, we talked about some different areas that we want to grow in as a church, right? We want to grow in our service. We want to grow in our, you know, community, our relationships. And then we want to grow in our private worship is what we said. And that private worship was kind of like a new phrase for a lot of people. The idea is really like doing your devotions, having your devotion time, your quiet time, whatever, you know, your tradition or lack thereof, you know, called it when you were growing up. But I like the word private worship better because it feels more descriptive of what we're talking about. And so we decided that this is a good series, not to teach you how to have private worship, but really to show you an example of what private worship looks like inside the Psalms of Ascent.
Yeah. No, I love that. Yeah, I'm so excited for, you know, just the Psalms. And, you know, you gave us a little synopsis, so to speak, over kind of what these, you know, songs were. So, you know, yesterday, you know, songs, I think it's, you said what, Psalms 120 to 134 is usually the Psalms, Songs of Ascent. But we started in Psalm 121. Why did we start in Psalm 121 instead of starting just 120 and going from there?
Well, one, because this isn't going to be a 15-week series. So we knew that we had to pick some. And two, because it felt like Psalm 121 is a really good introduction to the Psalms of Ascent. You know, I lift my eyes to the mountains. I lift my eyes to the hills, if you're reading the King James, right? And that's a good introduction because what the Psalms of Ascent were these songs that Jewish pilgrims would sing as they made a journey up to Jerusalem for festivals, worship, to offer sacrifices at the temple, what have you. And that's where the term Songs of Ascent comes from, is that as they ascended the mountains to go to Jerusalem, which is on top of a mountain, they would sing these songs. And so kind of that idea, hey, if I lift my eyes to the mountains, helps transition, get our head around that, what that is. As they lift their eyes to the roads, the trails, the dangers, the unknown, they're preparing for this journey that they're about to make. But I also think that's why private worship is such a big takeaway from this series, because really what we are seeing is these moments of worship that the pilgrims journeying on their way would have as they went to Jerusalem. And this was something they used for private worship in their life. They didn't wait till they got to the temple to worship. They were worshiping on the way there. And so I just felt like that was a good place for us to start kind of understanding, okay, what is the history background of these songs? And then what's that connecting point to our lives? Because we're still pilgrims. We don't use that phrase a lot, but we are still on a journey, a people of God on our way home to God. And it gives us a chance to connect with them and their faith and their moments of worship. And then learn, okay, what does this now look like in my life today for my journey? No,
that's so good. Especially, you know, the fact that like eyes to the mountains, it's like, you know, they didn't know what was going to happen on that journey, but they were choosing, God, I'm going to trust you. I'm being obedient. I'm following you. And whatever comes my way, my eyes are still, you know, literally fixed on you, because the temple, like you said, was at the top of the mountain. So like that's where their, you know, direction is. Where now for us, it's like, okay, you know, a lot of times we look up, you know, to God, look up to the sky, knowing that, you know, he's, you know, right there with us and the path in.
It's interesting because we did not have in-person services on the 28th of December, but I did do an online message that week. And, what we talked about is a theme that we've hit on, pretty consistently at the church, the idea of being an informal missionary.
Yeah.
Living with intention wherever you are, not having to go overseas to impact losses. You can do it right here. And then looking at the parable of the Good Samaritan to see, okay, what are some of these qualities of an informal missionary? What does this look like? Well, the context of this parable, which is a fictional story that Jesus made up, was there was a traveler going on the road, either up to Jerusalem, down from Jerusalem, but on these roads, and he got set upon by a group of, thieves and robbers. They beat him up, robbed him, left him naked and half dead. And that was a parable that Jesus was telling, but it was a reality that a lot of these travelers were potentially facing on the road as they traveled. And so Psalm 21 is, hey, I'm looking to the hills, not necessarily because my help comes from there, but because there's danger there. But I know that my help comes from the God who made those hills. And that's what Psalm 121 is about. The promises that God's going to be with them, that God's going to protect them, that God's going to preserve them, along that journey. And that's where that idea comes from. So it's kind of cool to see that Good Samaritan story, this is exactly why they were nervous before they started on this journey to Jerusalem.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Okay, so there were a lot of really cool nerd out moments at the Lake City location. Just kind of the background story.
Well, I think, let's just be honest, the most popular nerd out section that I heard, and I know that your husband resonated with, was my sick Lord of the Rings reference.
Where people were barely like halfway lifting their hand when you asked if they liked Lord of the Rings.
So I asked, how many Lord of the Rings nerds do we have out there? And there were hands that went up. They just didn't go up high.
Oh, and think from stage, you could see him. I could see Brandon's going
shoulder.
And I was like, you raise a hand high, and he went.
That is the most Baptist praise and worship move ever. Like right here, shoulder high. Yeah. However, there was somebody in the back. I couldn't see who it was, but they were like, no, me. High,
and you're like,
high
that's
hands.
my guy.
So, there were some cool, nerd out moments. I'm not going to spoil Lord of the Rings nerd out moment because, hey, you just had to be in the room for that one.
Yeah,
but let's just say, it was a moment for some people to make that connection for them.
Yeah, I'm sure. But so was there any information, just background that you want to maybe dig deeper from Sunday that maybe you didn't get to touch on? Because I know there was, for me, I love, as a former teacher, background knowledge helps you understand what was going on. But there was just so many cool moments where I was just jotting them down, based on the size of the steps when they were going up to the temple and just, all the things. So is there anything you didn't get to share on Sunday that you'd love to kind of add to the podcast?
I can't remember if I said it in the online message because we recorded that before Christmas and I don't go back and watch myself.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
But one thing I did mention is that the size of the steps at the temple were different depths so that people didn't rush into the temple for worship. So I think that was a cool bit of background knowledge. However, one of the things that I wanted to talk about, because I see it as a great connecting point that may be a good nerd out moment for us, it's not so much more background knowledge. It's a connecting point to the New Testament. And it is the fact that I think it's very important that we as the church today recover the sense that we really are pilgrims on a journey on our way home.
Yeah.
Hebrews hits on this a ton in the New Testament because by the time you get to Hebrews, the Jewish people in the Roman Empire had been scattered because of persecution. And so their sense of belonging, their sense of identity as a nation in a nation was very shaken. And so Hebrews is written to remind them of who they are, where they were headed. And ultimately their home was not a home here on earth, that they were for a better country, a city, he says, that has foundations, whose, author and builder is God. And I think that as the church today, we could solve a lot of our issues that we have, specifically around the divisiveness of politics and a very nationalistic idolatry, not just in America, by the way, like in many countries.
Yeah.
If we remembered that we were pilgrims, strangers, and sojourners here in this land. This world as the hymn says, is not our home. We're just passing through.
Yeah.
1 Peter says that we are exiles in this foreign country. And that is not to say that we should not love the country that we reside in. My boys and I, love to just kind of nerd out on patriotism sometimes, just like America, that's a sick American flag, and take patriotism very seriously, because I believe that we live in the best country on earth, the best nation on earth. We are blessed by God to live where we do, when we do. I 100% believe that. And yet that is not a part of my core identity as a follower of Jesus.
Yeah.
And this idea that our nationality and our identity are so closely intertwined, I think it's problematic in the church today, because there's so many different dividing lines that get drawn there, that if we saw ourselves first and foremost as citizens of another country that are just journeying through where we are now, then I think it would kind of clear up a lot of the issues we have.
Yeah.
And, that's kind of like, it makes me think of my dad when he went back to school. So my dad went back to college and finished his 4-year degree when I was in elementary school.
Oh, very cool.
And we lived in Perry, and he went to go get his 4-year degree at FSU up in Tallahassee.
Yeah.
Right.
Go Noles, baby.
Yeah. Well, not for him, not for the Parker family. We are staunch Go Gators. Right. And
that's where we differ.
It was so funny to see him hold on to his identity as a Gator, being a student at FSU.
Oh, gotcha.
And it was, hey, he liked the school, but, for him, there were lines that he wouldn't cross.
Yeah.
He went to Florida State University. He did not go to FSU. He didn't like saying FSU. It was Florida State
hilarious.
University. He said that, that he had a parking pass that he would use, but really just to park in handicap spots, because that's what a Seminole park is. So that, I kid you not, like stuff like that. But it was, for me as a young kid, it was funny to see, like, he's not let go of his identity, where his allegiance really belongs, even though this is his school.
Yeah.
This is where he goes to school. This is where he's at, and have a genuine appreciation for that school, the professors there. And so I think maybe for a lot of us as Christians, being able to have that, okay, we have a greater allegiance, even if though that's not where we are now.
Yeah.
I think that, that would be very helpful to us. So I wish we'd had time maybe to dig into that a little bit more on Sunday, but I think it's really important.
Yeah, no, it was, it was all in all just a fantastic way to start the year. But I wanted to spend a good bit of time.
All right, pause.
Oh,
I just got to tell the story because it just popped into my head.
Do it.
My dad at FSU.
Okay, and then I have another follow-up story. I wasn't sure if it was the right segue, but
we
finish it. And I
got to do this, right? Okay. So you got to get a picture of who my dad was. My dad was a cop, street, beat cop sergeant when he was going to school. He was going for a criminology degree. At this point, he's in his mid-30s, and everybody else going there is like fresh out of high school. He's taking all these classes.
So he's a full-time student at FSU.
Yeah, he took, it was 9 classes, but he took them all year round. So he's a full-time student. And one of the classes you have to take is a language class. Right. So he had to take Spanish. And my dad, being a cop, kind of has the personality you might think that a cop might have, and he says he went to the professor and said, look, I'm gonna be honest with you. I have no desire to learn Spanish at all. I need to pass this class. I got a full-time job. I got a wife. I got a kid. I'm coaching my kid's little league team.
Yeah.
So anything you could do to help me pass, just knowing that my heart's not going to be in this, And so they kind of came to an arrangement where, okay, you give some effort, take the test, but, we'll make sure that you pass.
Yeah.
And so the final exam for that class, because it was a small class, Spanish class at night, they went to a local Mexican restaurant in Tallahassee.
This is brilliant.
And they had to have all their conversation, including their ordering, off the menu and everything, was entirely in Spanish.
Okay.
And if they spoke entirely in Spanish, then they passed the final exam.
That's a legit professor.
And so my dad at this time was probably about 5'8", 350 pounds.
Okay.
He's a big guy.
Yeah.
Right? Here he is at this Mexican restaurant with all these students and professors. And you know what he ordered that night?
Nachos.
Agua.
There you go. Give him some water.
That's all he had all night long was agua. And if they asked him a question, no.
That's brilliant. There you go.
So he passed his Spanish. I think more like C-, but he passed. He got his
degrees.
C's got a degree.
Okay, so story about allegiance. So I swimmer my entire life, like from my mom taught me swimming lessons, did swim team, high school swim team all the way up till high school. And so in the summertime, my mom would take a lot of the Columbia swim team kiddos and we would go to the Gator swim camp, where you have like Coach Anthony Nesty, all these like big time Gator coaches would take the time to coach you, stroke work, you name it, they did it. And so, at the end of each practice, they were like, all right, guys, we're going to come together. We're going to huddle and we're going to say 1, 2, 3, go Gators. And I was like, I can't.
Not going to do it.
I cannot. I was literally pulling your dad. I was like, I can't do it. I'm a Seminole. Like, there is nothing in me that's going to say go Gators. And so finally one day I was like, all right, 1, 2, 3, go Gator swimming. And I was like, there you go. I did it.
You said go Gator swimming?
I absolutely did.
I respect that.
Yeah. I was like, I can be
I respect that.
Like, I can for sure say go Gators. Like, they have the absolute best swimming program ever. I will truly support that. But I believe garnet and gold. Ever since like little.
Funny. That reminds me, there was a viral video that hit over the holidays where it was like a kindergartner who was doing their Christmas program, at his school in Tennessee. And one of the songs they were singing was Rocky Top. And the kid refused to sing it because he was a Georgia fan. And he like took out a Georgia hat and put it on while they're singing Rocky Top and just started shaking his head. It was hilarious.
Brilliant.
It was hilarious.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. Allegiance. We have higher allegiance.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Yeah. So let's say.
Yeah, segue out of that, host.
Segue out of that. Go back. Okay, so yeah, super excited because we had a question submitted from a Let's Talk About That listener. And the question they submitted.
Wait, are you able to do that?
Yes, you are. Yeah. So if you're listening, we would love if you, submitted questions, whether it's from the sermon or a topic that you're interested in just digging deeper on. We love to get, your opinion on what we want to talk about.
What's the best brand of notebook or pens?
Hey, help
Wired
Chip out,
chips
please.
feet so flat. I don't know. Like, there's all these things.
All these questions we have. Please help us answer them. So we had a question submitted and this person listened to the message online, and let me pull up that question really quickly. I was super excited to see because the topic was pod fan mail /question. I was very excited. So
pod fan mail /question.
Like podcast, like fan mail. Like we got
fan mail.
Yeah. I think Chris said that just to make us feel really good.
Probably.
So the question was, hi, let's talk about that. After listening to the online message this Sunday, so the message you recorded before Christmas, a good question /area of exploration that I think would be fruitful for listeners to explore is around this question. If God will always protect me and take care of me, what form or forms does it take in real life when real situations go bad? So in the Lake City location, you kind of took the last little bit of the message and talked about this just based on kind of circumstances and things that had go on. So for those people at, Branford and Live Oak that maybe weren't in the room, what could you share with them kind of to answer this question and for our listeners as well?
Yeah, it was really cool to see that question when it came in, knowing that we had talked about that in person on Sunday. Because like I said, I recorded the online message before Christmas and on my way down from the mountains where we, went with the boys for a couple of days, I was kind of thinking through that message, and, there were a lot of people that, we had connections with, whether just kind of through friends that know them personally, or community connections. A lot of people lost their lives over those 2 weeks between Christmas and after New Year's. And, some of it, was illness. Some of it was tragedy. Some of it was just like, wow, that came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And so when you read Psalm 121, it's a psalm of protection, right? And literally, it says in Psalm 121, verse 7, the Lord will protect you from all harm. He will protect your life.
Yeah.
If we're going to have an honest intellectual faith, then how do we deal with that? How do we interpret that? Like the question says, what do you do when things go wrong?
Yeah.
And so I wanted to wrestle with that for a minute. And I think where we have to start is we got to understand the context that the psalmist wrote this in. they didn't write this psalm in the bubble of a perfect world where nobody ever got sick, nobody ever died, tragedy never happened. As a matter of fact, I said in Lake City that I'm 100% confident that somebody started out on their journey to Jerusalem to go to the temple to worship and didn't make it.
Yeah.
Something happened, at some point in history. And they probably sang Psalm 121 as they got started. Does that mean that that God failed? This is wrong? No, it means that as the psalmist wrote this, they knew they were writing it in the middle of a sin-broken world where things happened that didn't shake their trust. I think that we need to understand that this psalm is not a promise that we will never experience hurt or heartache, because we will.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, other places all over the scripture tell us that we will. James says, when you experience various trials, Jesus says, the world hated me, they'll hate you. He said, in this world, you will have trouble. Like, we are going to face those things. But the promise here, and the overarching promise we see throughout scripture, is that our hurts, if we are following Jesus, our hurts can't hurt us.
Yeah.
And I went to Romans 8:28. We know that all things work together for good for those who love God and are called according to his purpose. A couple of things there. Number one, it's not that all things work out for good. It is an act of working by God to turn all things for good. We have people who will do us wrong. We have circumstances in life that will hurt us. We have an active enemy who is seeking those he may devour, right? But God promises to take all of that and work it for our good. But the second part of that is not for the good of everybody. It says very clearly in Romans 8:28, for those who love God and are called according to his purpose. And that's a key part, because it's not God saying, I don't care about those people who don't love me, but that if you don't love God, what he's working is not going to be for your good, because that's not where you're headed. You're not headed to be with him, because what God does is he takes all of the hurts, all the heartaches of our life. What Joseph said in Genesis chapter 50, what you planned for evil, God planned for good. He uses that for good, because ultimately he uses those hurts to bring us closer to him and to make us more like him.
Yeah.
And if we love Jesus, that is the best thing that he could do for us.
Yeah.
I shared my favorite quote from my favorite pastor. I share it all the time. You may even know what it is if you've heard me say this before. But Charles Spurgeon said, I've learned to kiss the wave that crashes me against the rock of ages.
That was so good when you shared that yesterday.
I love that quote, because the picture is, it doesn't matter the wave.
Yeah.
It's not saying you're not crashing.
Yeah.
It's saying, but ultimately, if it crashes you up against Jesus, that was for your good.
Yeah.
That was for your good. And so if you love God, God promises not to waste any of your hurts, because those hurts are going to produce Christ-likeness in you, and it's going to draw you closer to him. What I said Sunday is, the worst that this world can do is speed that up for you.
Yeah.
Right? That's the worst the world can offer. What Jesus gives us is something that life can't steal and death doesn't take away.
Yeah.
And so then when we go back and read Psalm 121, the promise is not that we will never face these heartaches or hurts in life. The promise is those hurts can't hurt us.
Yeah.
Because we're on this journey to Jesus.
Yeah.
And it's not going to derail us off of that journey.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why that question is so important, because it wrestles realistically with where we're at, where we're going. And that's so important for our faith.
Yeah.
In fact, I was actually reading this morning a book on the Psalm of Ascent.
Okay.
It's the book that turned me on to the Psalm of Ascent. It's by a pastor now passed away named Eugene Peterson. It's an old book. I think it just went back into print, but it was out of print for a long time, called A Long Obedience in the Same Direction.
Okay.
Where he walks through the Psalms of Ascent. And I was reading this morning, he said this. He said, the reason many of us do not ardently believe in the gospel is that we have never given it a rigorous testing, thrown our hard questions at it, faced it with our most prickly doubts.
Yeah.
And I love that. And that's why I think that question's so important, because we need to wrestle with these honest questions with the text. Like if you just ignore them, your faith isn't growing. It's not being deepened.
Yeah.
God is big enough for our questions. He can handle those things.
Yeah.
And so I believe that we will believe more. Our faith will deepen when we say, okay, let's hold this to the fire and see what shakes out. So I do think that's a good question.
Yeah, no, I just think back, to a season. I'm not, I don't think this podcast is quite ready to hear my full testimony on this, but there was a very, very, very difficult season my husband and I walked through about a year and a half ago. And I had some really tough questions. I mean, I've been a believer since 18 and I had to, it truly was a season of refining my faith because I was asking God those hard questions. Why did this happen? You're a God that is sovereign and good. How can this bring good to my life? I mean, I was asking all the what if questions. Yeah. And then through God's goodness and grace and mercy and how he does it so well, it was like my faith was building in that entire process. And I remember, and I was reminded, like, Jesus was fully God and fully human. So he, had those same questions. Even when he was tested, he asked those same questions, like, on the cross, God, if you can take this away, I'm totally butchering what he said on the cross. But basically,
in the garden, he said, if you take this cup away from me,
yes,
do it.
Exactly.
But your will, not mine.
Exactly. So he still asked those questions, but I feel like, in that season, God was showing me how he took something that the enemy meant for evil and turned it into good. And, I'll share it another time what that was, but I was just blown away by what God could do in such one of my hardest seasons of my life. And it was for my good, but it was also for someone else who was watching. Yeah. It was watching me earnestly seek after God through tears, through crying, through heartache. They saw how good and sovereign God was, how God carried me through that. And because of that, they came to know Jesus.
Well, and that's a real faith. And I think people are drawn to real faith. Yeah. And it's important that we deal with that in a real way. And a lot of the real way that we deal with that is hurt, grief, anger, doubt. That's fine. Yeah. Those are not off limits for Christians. Those aren't off limits for followers of Jesus. Yeah. And I think that is super important. One of the things that I've noticed, and I don't know that you got there in your journey. I've known people who have and have come back from it. I've known people who have and haven't come back from it. But I see a lot of people, I think, get angry with God because he didn't do something.
I had a few moments like that.
But he never promised he would. Yeah. Right? They're angry that he didn't do it, but he never promised that he would. True. And so this may be a little bit of a, swerve. But for me, that's why I am so passionate about correctly understanding the scriptures, because I don't want to be telling people, oh, yeah, if you just have faith, then you're never going to face hardship. If you just have faith, then you'll always be healed.
We're in a broken world.
Yes. And so that's why it's so important for us to look at those, because I don't ever want anybody to say, well, why didn't God do this thing? Because I believed. Yeah. I had faith. Yeah. I, did all the right things, so God must have failed. Yeah. No, not when you understand really what Scripture's saying and the promises that God's really making. He doesn't promise that we're not going to face hurt in this world. He just promises that hurt can't hurt us. Yeah. Because we are made for more than the 85, 90 years we're here on this world.
Yeah. And the fact that those heartaches are going to throw us to the heart of Jesus. They're going to throw us to his feet. That's right. And get us longing for heaven, for perfect completion, no pain, no tears, no diagnosis, nothing. I think through the journey I went on, it makes me long for heaven that much more.
Absolutely. It's so funny because I think there's an age in life where you're like, yeah, I want to go to heaven. I just don't want to go right now. Yeah. I hope Jesus comes back. I hope he don't come back till I finish college, till I get married, till I have my kid, whatever. Yeah. But as you get older and you experience more in life, you get that sense of Maranatha, right? Come quickly.
1,000%.
Come quickly, Lord Jesus. And it's hard to explain because until you've lived it, you don't get it. Yeah. But I agree. Every hurt and scar we bear in this world, I think, creates a deeper longing for the one that's coming. Yeah. And you just get ready. You know? And I said Sunday, and I say it, and Leanne hates it. Good thing she doesn't listen to the podcast all the time. But I say all the time, like, hey, I'm here for a good time. It don't got to be a long time. Yeah. She's like, you got to stop saying that, And I'm like, well, it's true. Like, I just want you to know if something ever happens to me, just y'all know I ain't fighting to hold on to this thing tooth and nail, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, I want to be here with my family, with my kids, with my wife, with my friends. I want to be here to do what God has for me here on this earth. I want to go play golf and pickleball and see
all the
things and read the books. Like, I want to do all that. At the end of the day, if it's my time to go, I'm ready. Let's make it happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that you have to go through some things in life, years being one of those things you got to go through before you get there. But I think anybody who has, you understand that. You're like, you know, I'm not saying, hey, you know, I'm looking to, you know, pack my bag and head out of here right now, but I'm ready, you know, and not in this morbid, like, you know, morose way. It's just like, no, I get it. You know, I know that this hurt can't hurt me, and I'm ready for the day when there won't even be a hurt to hurt no more.
Yeah. And I would say even for me, like before I went through that very difficult season, I did have a little bit of like, oh, but I don't want to leave this. I don't want to leave this. But because of the hurt and the heartache I went through, it took away a lot of those like fears and anxiety I had about, okay, what does, you know, heaven look like? And now I'm like, man, God, if it's your will, and that, you know, like obviously, yes, my trajectory is heaven because I believe in Jesus, but it's like how much better heaven is compared to earth. And I always think about, you know, here on earth, you know, I love my family. I love my children. I love my husband. I love my friends, my church, but it's like heaven is that much better. And it's so hard for my mind to even like comprehend that. But because of the hurt and heartache and the brokenness you feel here, it's like, gosh, to live in eternity where you don't have any of those things, like, man, give me that.
Yeah, that's right. Because what happens 5 million years from now is a lot more important than what happens over the next 5 months from now.
Yep.
Or 5 years from now, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, I think that is, and we'll have, you know, one final, looking at you here, Brandon, nerd out, you know, segment from the Lord of the Rings, you know, at the end of the Lord of the Rings, one of the characters, you know, wakes up and essentially, you know, looking back on everything that's happened and the people who survived and all the good that's come out of it. And he says essentially, you know, are all of these bad things, is everything bad going to come untrue now? And really that's what heaven is. All the evil and brokenness and, you know, loss of this life. There's a day when it's not just going to be, okay, there's no more of that, but all of that even has happened will become untrue. Yeah. You know, it's kind of like the idea that Tim Keller talks about is one day it'll be like waking up from a dream. Yeah. When you can remember it, but it's not real because what you're in now is so much more real than what you remembered from the dream. Yeah. And that's what eternity is going to be like for the believer, is what we experience and know then is going to be so much more real than all of this bad stuff from the dream. It's going to be untrue. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that was a fantastic conversation. It was good. Yes. It was good. I liked it. And considering where we started, yes, it was even better that that's not where we stayed. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Well, Chip, I always enjoy conversations with you. And yeah, I just wanted to say thanks again to the person that submitted the question. It was a great topic of discussion for us today. So I would encourage you, even after today, submit questions. It allows us to kind of know which trajectory we want to go with, but also gets us even ask even more questions. Yeah. So for sure. Yeah, you can submit them in the comment section. You can email them. Can they drop it on Spotify? I don't even know. How do you submit a question? Brother, I don't do Spotify at all. You're asking the wrong one. Email us, comment on Facebook, message us on Facebook. Yeah. You know, come by the office, leave a sticky note on the door. Whatever. Yeah. Let's definitely keep this conversation going. But yeah, thanks for tuning in this week. Next week, we will continue on with another Psalm of Ascent. But until then, know that we are praying for you guys. We love you guys, and we'll catch you next week. See ya. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Let's Talk About That. We hope it encouraged and challenged you as we continue to grow on this journey of faith and embrace community together. If you have more questions, thoughts, or feedback, we want to hear from you. Be sure to reach out to us through our social media or visit our website to stay connected. If you found today's discussion meaningful, don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review. Until next time, we hope that this episode inspired you and will keep Sunday's message at the front of your mind. See you next week.